What was the hardest part of putting the app together, the first one?
So we struck out twice, just completely. The people we tried hiring, just it didn't work out. They insinuated it was going to be one cost, and then after we flew to Miami and did some like initial specs, they came back and yeah, it's going to be actually 7x. And we're like, okay, get out of here. So like strike one, cool. Strike two, tried a local place here in the Carolinas. The main guy a couple months in just completely left, decided to go on like whatever you want to call it. What professors, they take some time off. What do they call that?
Sabbatical.
Yeah, something like that. He just decided to peace out. And so no one else really understood what was going on.
Oh my
And
God.
after a lot of frustration, 6 months of frustration, they like accidentally released something unfinished to the public. And, a couple of people downloaded it, thankfully not very many. And we're just like, what the hell's going on here? So that was strike two.
Entrepreneurs, we are traveling to Carolina today to sit down with the fitness entrepreneur, Nick Shaw. Thank you so much for joining that entrepreneur show.
Hey, what's up, man? Thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. Great to be here.
I'm really excited. I'm definitely excited after catching up on your info sheet. So everyone stick around for a good one. He is the founder and CEO of Renaissance Periodization, a multi-million-dollar company that helps people achieve their health and fitness goals through evidence-based methods. I'm excited to dive into these areas specifically, everyone. The lessons learned, the failures, the hard parts he learned from bootstrapping all the way up to achieving three figures. I mean, excuse me, 100 million in revenue, just incredibly inspirational. Seven Habits of Success. He's got a book all about it. So we're going to learn some author tips as well. This is going to be exciting, and I'm especially looking forward to the end here. Managing a team of 50 plus people. I've had challenges after getting to over three, and now I'm at nine. So I'm excited
Yeah.
really to learn these next levels in hiring. Maybe we'll start it off right there. Hiring,
Yeah.
scaling as you're going along. Let's talk about your early days hiring, maybe your first hire that was like the game changer, and then how you started to manage five, 10. Now you're at 50.
Yeah, first hire. Okay. So it was basically we were drowning in work, my wife and I, and we couldn't keep up. Like literally, if we took a day off of like not responding to emails, customer service, all that stuff, we would get so far behind that we were just like, we can't take time off. It doesn't make sense because then you get even further behind and you feel like you're
Yep.
always playing catch up. And so just out of pure necessity, we're like, we need to hire someone to come in and work part-time customer service. And yeah, truth be told, it wasn't that great of a hire because the person didn't end up sticking too long. I didn't have much experience. I had zero experience, I should say, in that regard. My wife came from corporate America, had a little more experience, so she was, a little more seasoned when it came to that. But I will say, as our hiring has kind of evolved, it really is a lot of referrals from people that already work within the company. And I think this is something that smaller companies can do. I don't think obviously you can do it on a huge scale if you're like, Facebook, Google, whatever. But for us, it works really well because we kind of want more senior people because we're all remote. Like, so it's if we have to bring someone in, we got to kind of look over the shoulder. It's just never going to
Right.
work. And
Yeah.
we've had a couple failed experiences with that. And it kind of, as I look back, hindsight's 2020, I can look back and be like, oh, okay, well now I see why it didn't really mesh. They didn't really fit the culture. They weren't really like go-getters. They kind of had to be told what to do, and we had to really kind of stand over and watch them. And that just doesn't really work for us. So if we hire based off of referrals, one, I think it has this really interesting part where the person who's referring them, like it's on them as much as it is the new person. So there's a lot of pressure. So I think that helps in that the person that's already internal wants to help them. They want to answer their questions. They want to help get them up to speed. They're probably going to take some time,
Yep.
whether it's, quote unquote office hours or not. They're going to be there to make sure because if that person looks bad, it reflects poorly upon them. So I think there's definitely that kind of like peer pressure, sort of, but in a good way, of course. And that's probably our secret sauce. And we do have a pretty large community and following out there. So when we do decide to branch out of that, from just like referrals that we have, we will post something in kind of our internal community, be like, hey, because we've had a good amount of success with that. That people really know what we do, what we're all about. Like they've been following our content for a while, so they're already pretty passionate about it. And so when these people come in, man, they're really great culture fits because they love what we do already. We don't really have to explain to them what we do. And we've especially found that on like the marketing side when it comes to writing content and all that, because they get it. Like they use our stuff. They are the demographics. So I mean, those are two things that work for us. Will it work for everyone? I'm not sure, but it works for us. So I'll just share that experience.
I absolutely love the referral idea, and that's something I've tried to actually adapt here. I was looking for a lead setter for lead gen and someone to redo my website, but I've had a lot of poor experiences with just hiring to hire, whether it's just be a freelancing site or whatever. Love that advice. And everyone out there, he's now scaling to 50 employees, and that's something where he's not utilizing the Indeed boards, where I can even speak on myself. There's like a black hole where if you're getting mass applications, excuse me, from 300 people, you're wasting your time sifting through 300 resumes, and your time is very valuable, which is why we're shifting into time management. This guy does it all. But as we keep going through the show, we're going to talk about his book. What are some tricks and tips that you can offer our audience for time management?
Time management, man. I really think it's probably two things. It's setting like a priority list and really just trying to focus on the couple top priorities because I think, and I'm certainly guilty of this, quite often, where dude, it's so easy to get distracted with everything, especially as, quote unquote CEO. It feels like people are constantly pinging you, whether it's Slack, email, text, whatever. And, I kind of have the personality where like I like to respond to people, but at the same time, if I'm trying to sit down and do a project and then I've got my phone nearby or something up, like forget about it. It's going to take me 3, 4 times as long if I even get it done. So, like, if I'm really gonna just try to get in that zone, I usually just try to close all my browsers in the background except for the one thing that I'm working on. Probably put my phone face down like it is right now when I'm
Yep.
recording, so that
Yeah.
won't distract me. And that's probably a big one. And then number two is I guess probably the biggest thing that I've learned is I know that there's probably a couple things that I'm pretty good at, and I know there's a lot of stuff that I'm not very good at. So rather than me trying to take a bunch of time to figure out the stuff that I'm really not that good at, I'm gonna go try to get like a third party contractor or like hopefully, hire for that role or something, or you basically just trust that my people can, do it better than I can. And then it sort of just makes me more productive at the things that I like and enjoy doing and I'm hopefully pretty good at. And then hopefully we can bring in other people that, have skills in those other areas and hey, just let them do their thing.
Incredible advice. Now, when that need does come up, you mentioned that you try to fill it internally first. Would that look like group message, or do you send to department heads for all of our other employer entrepreneurs out there who are in these shoes? How did you go about this?
Yeah, yeah. So, kind of just determining what it is. So, like what we're doing right now is basically coming up with like a job description for a role that we're going to start looking for, and just make sure we show it to kind of like our leadership team first. Like, hey, what do we think of this? This look pretty good. But basically, just being clear so what we really need. Like, all right, so what is it we're truly looking for? Let's make sure that's lined up first, because if we don't have that and we go out there, you're just on a road to nowhere because then it's not clear. And again, clarity sort of leads the way on all things whether internal, external hiring, all that. So you have to start with that. If you're super clear, you're going to be a lot easier. And then yeah, it's just kind of going out to the team and being, all right, cool. Like, do we know anyone within our own networks, or hey, can we sort of ask around? And if we can, hey, maybe we can get a few leads from that. Cool. Let's set up some initial calls, just see if there's anything there. Kind of no pressure. And yeah, if something kind of fits, and all right, we'll take it to next steps. And probably we'd do that first and then sort of take it to like our community and we can post on social media or something like that, see if we can get some hits. We've done that before as well. Just yeah, good news is, man, just that people follow us. Like we typically sometimes just have people reaching out to us anyways and they're like, hey, here's my resume, here's what I do. And we're like, cool, all right, like we're not hiring right now, or maybe we are, but hey, just at least to that next call. So there's probably like the couple of steps that we would take for it.
Well, I think that speaks to the credibility of the brand that people are reaching out to you, even though there's nothing posted. So, congratulations on that. I'm going to ask you to show some love to someone within the company. Who is the all-star referral team member that's been bringing you like some qualified candidates that turned out to be rock stars?
Oh yeah. So our third partner, so I'm a co-founder, and then Dr. Mike is co-founder with me way back in the day, and then our third partner, our essentially serves as CTO. He has essentially recruited people that he's worked with before in tech companies. So these are all like high-level software engineers. He's managed to recruit and bring over like 5 or 6 of those guys, and they're all
Wow.
high level senior, just rock stars. And so kudos to him because I don't know very much about all that stuff, and so it's kind of just trusting that he knows the right network and can bring in really good people. And so far, yeah, man, that's we got a really solid team. Because again, like we don't have a huge team. We actually feel pretty comfortable that we can scale pretty well right now without having to go and hire a ton of
Yeah.
people. And maybe there's some ways we can incorporate AI in there so we don't have to go and hire a ton people. But yeah, that's kind of what we've done and seems to work. And definitely kudos to my colleague Andrew.
It sounds like it was a good hire for you, a good way to bring him on because look at all the value he's added. But a lot of value you add to your life each day, and one of those things you do it by is with the 7 habits of success. I wanted to circle back to this, what I teased in the beginning of the show. Let's start talking about some of these habits, maybe the most impactful ones that hold the most value for you.
Yeah, so there's 7 of them, but I'll name probably like the top two. So one's work ethic, but we'll kind of skip that one because it's a kind of the most obvious.
Yeah,
But it is kind of like the foundation because without it, you don't really get too much accomplished. So that's why it has to be there on the bottom of the pyramid. Because otherwise, your total pyramid's a heck of a lot smaller.
right.
But number two, so it's number two in that rank order, but to me, it's probably the most important. Internal locus of control. So it's basically just you control the controllables. People kind of call it all sorts of different stuff, but you just there's obviously things within your control and then there's things outside of your control. And if you spend all of your time focusing on the external influences, that's more of that external locus of control. Man, it generally just leads to kind of just despair because you really just get down on yourself. You're comparing yourself to other people, doing all this stuff, all that. Whereas, like, if you just turn and focus on what you actually have control over, man, it gives you a lot of hope because you know that what you say, what you think, and what you do actually does matter. And then you start to
Absolutely.
take actions. Right, because the things you can do, you have control over. It leads to some little early momentum, some little wins, and then you get more confidence, you get more self-efficacy, and then you just this positive feedback loop just builds on itself, and then you keep taking more action. And that work ethic action is at the very bottom because ideas are great, but if you don't have them, I'm sorry, well, you have ideas, but if you don't do anything about them, you're not actually doing something, and nothing really happens. And so it's that kind of belief in yourself to get going, and then you actually take the action, builds upon itself. Like that to me is where everything sort of starts and kind of grows from.
The foundation, like you're saying, is so important. If you're not bought into what you're doing, you don't have the work ethic for it. Entrepreneurship will chew you up and spit you out.
Yeah.
And it does to all of us, but we have to get up and do it again the next day. One of the best feelings is what you just described when you start to get that little momentum, snowballing little moments and little wins,
Oh
that
yeah.
just internal feeling where like, okay, I can just rock and roll now for as long as I need to get it done.
Confidence. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Confidence is a big thing because if
Yeah.
you don't really believe in yourself in the first place, you won't take the action. And so you never have any proof that you actually are capable of doing it. Whereas if you sort of flip that around, you start taking action, then you start to create even more momentum, even more belief in yourself. Man, that's how a lot of good things happen. And, they say most entrepreneurs are, sort of optimists. And optimists is great, but I actually prefer the term hope because hope actually refers back to knowing that the actions you take matter and will impact your future outcomes. And that's kind of how I look to view it. Again, optimism's great. Don't get me wrong. I'm full of optimism as well, but I like to know that it's because of things that I can hopefully have some control over.
Hey, 100% agree with you. You've absolutely crushed it so far. Another area I teased in the beginning was how you bootstrapped to 100 million, right? You already talked about bringing on some key partners, some key people that excelled at what they do, were able to network and recruit, retain top talents. What are some real learning lessons that still stick out to you back from those bootstrapping days?
Oh yeah. Well, it kind of goes back to I think what we led off with of when you're just starting out by yourself and you're a solopreneur, like there's so much stuff you're not going to be good at or you don't know anything about. And I think that I quickly realized that. And I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing on a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm like, can I hire someone to come in and like help out? Because I'm going to spend a whole lot of time being frustrated trying to figure this out and probably still get it wrong. So that's when because again, you don't have a ton of money when you're starting out, of course. So it's like maybe you just go hire a third party person to come in and help you part time here and there, a little consultancy job. And then, of course, like if they do a good job, then it was like, all right, cool. Now, is there a bigger role for you to fill? So, like, that was definitely a huge lesson early on. Another thing was, again, because we were bootstrapped, we knew that eventually we wanted to create some apps, but man, software development takes a long time, takes a lot of money. So what we did was we didn't really know if like what we were trying to do, what we were trying to solve was scaling the one-on-one coaching model in fitness online. And so we knew we kind of had these logical steps set up. Hey, if someone comes to me and they're trying to lose weight, here's how we're going to set up stuff. If they stall out, here's what we're going to do. And then if they stall out again, here's what we're going to do. So we kind of had these like kind of predetermined algorithms, but not, in an app, which is what we wanted
Yeah.
to do eventually. But we started selling these Excel templates and basically digital products. And when you sell digital products, well, they don't really cost you much to do on the back end. And so we were able to have very large margins early on, and they did pretty well. People took off. This is on the early sort of waves, let's call it 2015, 2014, somewhere in there, of Facebook and Instagram. So we rode that, lots of social media, lots of social proof, led to the digital products doing really, really well. And on the whole, kind of on the back end, we were essentially self-funding the app process behind the scenes, knowing that that's where we wanted to get. Lo and behold, here we are, 8 years later, we've got two apps. We've got a diet app and one for hypertrophy training.
Congratulations on the growth, everyone out there. That was just an idea he planted, and then eventually it came into fruition as his journey evolved. What was the hardest part of putting the app together, the first one?
So we struck out twice, just completely. The people we tried hiring, just it didn't work out. They insinuated it was going to be one cost, and then after we flew to Miami and did some like initial specs, they came back and yeah, it's going to be actually 7x. And we're like, okay, get out of here. So like strike one, cool. Strike two, tried a local place here in the Carolinas. The main guy a couple months in just completely left, decided to go on like a, whatever you want to call it. What professors, they take some time off. What do they call that?
Sabbatical.
Yeah, yeah, something like that. He just decided to peace out. And so no one else really understood what was going on.
Oh my
And
God.
after a lot of frustration, 6 months of frustration, they like accidentally released something unfinished to the public. And, a couple of people downloaded it, thankfully not very many. And we're just like, what the hell's going on here? So that was strike two. Legally, I can't say too much more about that actually,
Of
but
course.
eventually it was Andrew, who I mentioned earlier, was using our products, and he reached out and he's like, hey, I'm in software engineering. Like, can I take a shot? And we're like, well, let's give it a shot because he
Nothing
understands.
to
He
lose.
understands.
Yeah.
Well, and he understands the ecosphere, right? He
Yeah.
understands what we're trying to do, what we're all about. And so it just, I mean, yeah, there's just a lot of software development's really, really hard. It takes a really long time, and it's not a set it and forget it type thing. It's something you always have to stay on top of. And so that's like probably a big lesson if entrepreneurs are listening. Yeah, I want to start an app. Cool. I'm going to go hire someone from, a different country and they'll just build it and kind of set it and forget it. Like that's not how it works unless you want a really crappy app. So, the whole lots of lessons to be learned there. And truthfully, yeah, I'm not the person that can speak that well on it, except to sort of put some caution in the wind to people that are thinking about it.
Oh man. Yeah, that side of tech is just like a different language to me that I've never heard. But at
Mhm.
least you weathered the storm. Everyone out there, entrepreneurship, if you're listening to this show, persistence is needed. And that just shows
Yeah.
you strike out, not give up, strike out again. Eventually, it fell into place. Is there plans for a third app?
Not necessarily. I'd probably be taking these first two and just expanding the capabilities of them.
Cool,
But
cool.
right now we've had this really sort of meteoric rise in our YouTube channel, and it's like this perfect kind of marriage of this new demographic coming in and having this app that we launched our hypertrophy app about a year ago, and it's completely changed the trajectory and kind of what our flagship product is now, because now this new app is our flagship product, whereas before it was a diet app. And so it's just been a bunch of really cool things there, but it's been cool to kind of see the authenticity around it because I actually started out as a bodybuilder and I've competed before, and same with my colleague and co-founder. And so to see us kind of come back to our roots really says a lot about just being authentic to who you are when it comes to marketing. And when you're really authentic, it really just stands out and it shows because you're not having to fake anything. It's just like, hey, this is who we are, and a bunch of people are going to like it. Some people won't, and no big deal.
Just put that in the show notes. Being authentic in marketing, everyone out there, just do it. You've been very inspirational throughout. What was your favorite part of competing?
Not the last few weeks. That is absolutely not the most fun part. It's more of just like the process of everything. I don't know about you. I'm sure entrepreneurs listening, they'll probably relate to this, but man, this goes back to something way deeper, like high school. And I never wanted to be average. I always kind of knew that I wanted to stand out and kind of maybe had some capabilities, some skills, maybe a little
Yeah,
bit of talent, not necessarily physical wise, but just like the way that I approach things with my mindset.
right.
I thought that I could stand out and sort of not be average. I never wanted the idea of just kind of fitting in, anything like that. And so just the idea of bodybuilding just, I think, draws people to that, especially me, because it's like, the things that you go through are so hard in terms of dieting and training. You go through all that to literally, basically 1 hour to look your best. Like everything's around that, like one brief moment that you have. So it's just the whole process that goes into it. That's probably my favorite part because not very many people can do it. Like it is straight up one of the hardest things I've ever done is actually competing, getting lean enough, going through everything that it takes in order to actually get up there and be competitive and do well.
Let's talk about, you said the weeks leading up to it were hell. Let's talk about some of that who for some like I've never competed or I don't really know much. I can imagine like
Mhm.
cutting weight from like my wrestling days, like all those
Oh,
things,
yeah.
but to a extreme.
Yeah, so you're on the right track there with, cutting weight for sports is very, very hard. So this is where it gets even more complex because if you're also an entrepreneur and you're trying to like lead people, when you get to those last few weeks, your food intake is incredibly low. You have to keep training. Like you have to keep your cardio up. You have to keep your steps up because you have to get to a certain, if you want to be competitive, that is. You could not do that and you could get up on stage and not be competitive, but that's not really the goal, right? You want to be competitive. You want to win, right? I'm a competitive
Yeah.
person, of course. And so you're just so low energy and you're just so hangry is the right word. Low energy, cranky, not very fun to be around. And that's fine if you're, a single dude that just lives by himself or whatever. Probably not that big of a deal. But when you've got family, you've got a wife, you've got kids, you've got a business to lead, it definitely puts more, there's more at stake. You just have
Yeah.
to be super, super mindful of all that. Because the last thing that you want as the leader is that you can't be snappy at people, right? You can't be this roller coaster of emotions. That's not what leaders are. Leaders are steady, sort of predictable. Now, have I always been like that? No, absolutely not, but kind of learn over time. So that's a big hurdle, compounded by that you still gotta, and it's different than other sports too, because other sports you can go compete, you can do something fun, and then what do you do afterwards? You go out and you get some food, you get some drinks,
Yeah.
whatever, you hang out with people. And that just doesn't exist. And again, it's a voluntary thing, so I'm not trying to like complain about it. Just giving a little bit of perspective for people if they're like, oh, I might want to try competing in physique sports. I'm like, no, you don't.
Oh man, I love it. And another area I want to touch on is having to wear that leader hat and not be a friend. It was challenging for me to really get going in the beginning. What are some tips you can offer me and other people out there to keep those two things isolated?
I will share my perspective. I don't know if I'm super great at this, but I also struggle with that a little bit myself. Because I'm a nice guy. I like to get along well with people. And so I think one of the biggest mistakes we made for the longest time was not giving people the appropriate feedback that they needed. And so now my whole thing right now is that I want to set the culture within our company that feedback is not something that should cause stress or anxiety. The feedback is something that we want to welcome because we all want the same thing. We all have good intentions. We all have good people within the company right now. We know that. We've gotten rid of some bad apples, of course,
Yeah,
but now everyone's on the same page. We want the same thing. So feedback is sort of a gift. It's not something that should be feared
absolutely.
or shied away from. It should be something that comes very easily because of the intent, because of the goal alignment, because we all want to get better. And when I approach it like that, it hopefully starts to flip the script. And so that's one of the biggest things that I've been working on myself. And, it sort of starts from the top. So I have to be okay with it. And I have to go to people and I have to be like, hey, give me some feedback. And, does anyone like getting bad feedback? No, nobody does, right? Fact. But you just kind of have to be like, all right, yeah, that stinks. I'm glad that I'm aware of that now. Okay, cool. I'll try to do something about it, try to change, and hopefully, good things come from it. But that would be my feedback.
That's the right mindset to have. And again, it's easier said than done. It's something I'm trying to just fully adapt where every piece of feedback you have to welcome it because take it constructively because if they're saying it, they might not be the only one who feels that way. You don't have to enact or act on every piece of feedback. Be mindful of who you're getting it from. As entrepreneurs, of course, you get a ton of feedback from people who have never started a business. where they mean well and they're trying to help, but is that feedback coming from a place that you can apply to your business? Of course, sometimes it is. Sometimes it isn't. Before we find out your contact info, your website, it's been such an awesome show. So glad we had the chance to connect.
Yeah.
If you could sit down, Nick, with any entrepreneur throughout history, dead or alive, someone you have not met yet, whose brain would you choose to pick?
Man, that's a really good one. I might go with like one of my favorite athletes because they've also turned into really exceptional business people as well. So I know this is a
Yeah,
little bit cheating, but
no,
like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, because I mean
it's
they're some of the
amazing.
most fiercely competitive people in the entire world and history of the world, two of the greatest at their craft of all time. And after basketball, they were able to excel in business as well. So we'd be really fascinated to learn from them.
I love it. Well, if you could pick a meeting place for either one of them, where would the meeting go down?
Chicago United Center. Just sat down, I guess, and where it all happened, where Jordan was kind of became the king, so to speak. Just listen to what he has to say and just shut up and let him talk for an hour, and I'll just maybe ask a couple questions.
That's the best answer you could have given. He is in his ultimate comfort zone where he did the most of his damage on the court right there in Chicago. Great answer and a great episode. Thank you so much, Nick, for taking the time out of your day to join the show here in our community of entrepreneurs. Where can we find you online?
Yeah, I will say if anyone wants to learn anything about fitness, so we've got an amazing YouTube channel and it's crazy how well it's doing right now. My colleague is the face of that. He's a really funny guy. If you're okay with some jokes and some non-PC type humor, it's going to be a phenomenal place. You're going to laugh, you're going to learn a ton. Go to YouTube, just search Renaissance Periodization on there. It'll come up. My buddy has a bald head, very, very big head as well. So if you see that little like screenshot or whatever, the images on there, you'll know that's him, but ton of great value. I mean,
I
there's
want
so much free information on there, man. It's crazy. And it's all free. You can learn as much as you want on there. And then for myself, at nick.shaw.rp on Instagram is the best spot to reach me.
I'm gonna have to ask you a follow-up here. As far as YouTube, you have any tips or tricks of the trade? Do you have do you outsource YouTube, or how does that work for you guys that you're getting so much traction?
A lot of trial and error, but
Yeah.
we have an internal team now, and it has become a growing team where the guy that we originally hired, he was a video editor. He's got a 4-year degree in terms of like sound engineering, something like that. But he became the guy that would edit all the original videos, would film everything, and so it just takes a lot of time to sort of get to, I guess, where you start to catch on. Like it's going to take a
Yeah.
really long time. You just have to be really, really consistent. And that does seem like things start to get a little bit more linear and exponential along the way.
Okay.
To like now the numbers that we're doing on a per day basis. I mean, it's crazy. Like we'll gain, 150, 200,000 subscribers in a month. And that's more than we did like the first 6 years that we had the channel up and running.
Well,
It's
there's another
but there,
persistence message.
right? And there's a lot more to it behind the scenes. I'm definitely not the expert here. That's Scott. He's you want to talk about another all-star. There you go. But he's a guy that runs our YouTube. Man, he spends a lot of time researching stuff, analytics, insights. We've got a guy that, third-party guy that all he does is makes thumbnails for every video that we have. We've got a couple ready to go because if one doesn't do well, we'll kind of sub it in. And so it's like this whole kind of A/B testing
Amazing.
process and all this stuff behind the scenes. I'm sure there's some really good spots online where you can, read up on some of that. Um, just it takes a team though. It takes a team. And I will say, okay, I have to credit again, going back to my buddy Dr. Mike, he's got the gift of the gab. There's a whole lot more to it, right? You can do all that stuff behind the scenes, but if you don't have kind of the personality to attract it in the first place, you might struggle. So I would be disingenuous if I did not mention that. And that's sort of an unfair advantage that we have because I think he's, arguably right now the top sort of guy when it comes to fitness information
Well,
on
thank
YouTube.
you. Thank you for sharing that. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to join the show. Everyone out there, go hop to that YouTube channel, check it out. And then, of course, reach out if you are a good fit for him. The show is at That Entrepreneur Show on all social media channels, all podcast platforms. And I'm at Vincent A. Lancy on the same. Be sure to head to my YouTube channel for some video clips of this show a few weeks after it goes live. And with that, we are signing off today from Carolina down to Florida. Nick, thanks so much once again.
Thanks for having me on, man. Great to be here.